Welcome to the Ordinary Doula Podcast with Angie Rozier, hosted by Birth Learning, where we help prepare folks for labor and birth with expertise coming from 20 years of experience in a busy doula practice, helping thousands of people prepare for labor, providing essential knowledge and tools for positive and empowering birth experiences.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Doula Podcast. My name is Angie Rozier. We are hosted by Birth Learning, and we are here today with an awesome guest, Brittany Fox, who is a nutritional therapy practitioner and functional hormone specialist. I have heard her present at different conferences, kind of have watched her career. I saw her as a doula years ago, and it's been awesome to see her area of expertise just grow and flourish as she has pursued some of her passions. So what I want to talk about today with Brittany is something that I see a lot as a doula, and that's the incidence of gestational diabetes and the incidence of preeclampsia. So gestational diabetes, it's diabetes, high sugars during pregnancy. I saw a client, was it today or yesterday? Young client who is dealing with that. I've seen that a lot over the last 20 years, but I'm seeing it more often and in younger folks that just surprise me. Also preeclampsia. Also, so many clients of ours, I think, are being watched very closely at the end of pregnancy for developing preeclampsia. They're being induced early. We have someone being induced this weekend at 37 weeks because of preeclampsia. And that brings with it a whole host of challenges, both for labor, delivery, postpartum, for breastfeeding. It kind of cascades into a lot of things. And I have a couple other I'm going to build my case here and then have Brittany save us from it a little bit, or at least answer some things. I was speaking with a midwife friend of mine, a dear friend who delivered babies for about 40 years. She retired about 10 years ago, and I talked to her about her career. So she ended in like the early, maybe 2015-ish, was when she retired. And I asked her what had changed over the course of her 40-year career. And she said that more complications were arising. And of course, she works with a very low risk population doing home birth. She goes, we saw more gestational diabetes, more preeclampsia. And she's very, very, Brittany, you would love her. She's very firm on what her patients would eat. She's like, if somebody's going to have me be their midwife, they're going to take these supplements, they're going to eat like this, they're going to get this much protein, because she needed a very low risk person. So even at the end of her home birth career, she was seeing a shift in things, and she was curious as to why. Fast forward to a different situation a few weeks ago, I was at a busy hospital talking to a charge nurse in the hall, and she was saying how many medicals they have, like up on their wall. She's like, almost everyone is a medical anymore, which means it's not just a straightforward labor delivery, right? They have some medical thing they're being induced for, being watched for, which impacts labor, delivery, increases inductions. She's like, they're gestational diabetic. They have preeclampsia, were there two she mentioned. And it's interesting, little side note, post-pandemic, we have a lot of young nurses, I've noticed. A lot of our veteran nurses of 20, 30, 40 years are no longer working. So she remarked, she's like, I have a lot of new nurses who I have to put them on a medical, where I wish they were more veteran to put them on these medicals, but we don't have that anymore. So that's where I'm building my case. Like, I'm seeing this more in my practice and the people I work with. Gestational diabetes, preeclampsia specifically. There might be other things, but those two. So Brittany, from a nutrition standpoint, from a diet standpoint, are these things avoidable? Why are young people getting these? Talk to us about that.
It's so interesting because you're talking about how we're seeing this increase in complications during pregnancy and gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, more medicals in the hospital that are happening. And what we have to realize is this is a reflection of what's happening with our health overall. It's not just related to pregnancy, but more and more women today, more males and females, are really, really struggling with metabolic syndromes and blood sugar dysregulation, and understanding that the foods that we are eating, especially the amount of chemicals that are in our food, there's more chemicals, less nourishment. This is affecting our overall health of the body and how the body is functioning. And the human body is incredible. And oftentimes we will look at something as a complication or something wrong, but really the body is doing the best that it can to keep us alive, to keep our baby safe, to keep things functioning. And we have to really look deeper at a root cause. And something that I see happen sometimes with gestational diabetes is it's just dismissed or excused as something that cannot be controlled, that it happens just because of placenta hormones. But the reality is could there be more contributing if we dig deeper and looking at it? And what can we do with diet and lifestyle to support it if that's something that we are dealing with? And understanding that there are things. And sometimes women are just told no carbs, like this is how you have to eat and this is how you have to do. But again, there's more going on. I'm gonna pause and see if you have any questions before I dive
So
in too deep.
I love that a reflection of our health as a community, as a whole nation, perhaps. So maybe I'm always curious about our food sources and how those have changed over the decades. Also, just systemic stress
Hmm.
that people might be feeling. There's probably a lot of factors, toxins in our world, in our food, in our water, a lot of things going on. So, and I also, as you've mentioned before, as we've talked about other things, like not to be left powerless by this. Like there are
Yeah,
things to do. And I think maybe the folks we see during pregnancy might not have the answers, right? So people kind of have
yeah.
to become empowered themselves and look for what can be done rather than just say, oh, throw their hands up and say, this is how it is. I can't do anything about it. So talk to us about, yeah, dive deep. What can we do?
So there's obviously diet that's related, but that's more than just avoid eating carbs because the body is struggling with them. Our stress management is really, really going to play a role in that. And that's something a lot of people don't realize is that stress actually increases glucose levels. So if there
Regardless of
is
how you're eating.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how you're eating, the body is designed to do this, that when we are stressed and the body needs more energy to handle that stress, it will increase glucose. So stress alone can really raise those glucose levels. Now, we do know that the body does become more insulin resistant naturally during pregnancy, and that's because the baby needs more glucose. And so the body, in its wisdom, knows that and will naturally become a little more insulin resistant so that there's more glucose circulating in the blood so that that can be passed to baby. Now, what happens when there's too much glucose, or if we go into pregnancy, we're already dealing with insulin resistance, or there's a lot of stress, there's a lack of minerals, then we really can see more of these cases of gestational diabetes happening. So, so what can we do? Stress management is huge. Being aware of our stress hormones and our adrenal health, and realizing that that plays more of a role than you recognize. Sleep. Lack of sleep will increase glucose levels as well. So if you think of the world that we're in, where a lot of people aren't sleeping well, there's a lot of stress, our diet isn't great, um, our food doesn't have as many nutrients as it used to, so our minerals are imbalanced. There's a lot that's contributing to kind of this cascade effect of different complications we're seeing. So one thing that we can do with our food to really support gestational diabetes, if that's something we're dealing with, is tying back to our conversation about protein, is eating protein with every meal and starting the meal with protein. Now, I actually recommend starting a meal with fibrous vegetables first, and then protein and fat, and then carbohydrates. And by doing so, you can greatly reduce how much glucose is hitting the bloodstream. So then, if there's not a huge spike, then there's not as much insulin that has to be released, and the blood sugar can stay more stable. Um, but again, making sure that we're including protein with all meals. And I take it a step further by saying, let's include some vegetables too, to make sure that we're reducing that glucose spike.
So
So,
not only what you eat in a meal, but the order you eat it in. We're getting pretty
mhm,
specific. Okay, I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. And this is something that I wish everyone understood because, again, not only in pregnancy is this an issue. I would say with 98% of the clients that I work with, even women who are eating whole food diets, who are really trying to be intentional are struggling with some sort of blood sugar dysregulation. So this is an epidemic that's happening right now. And would say for every person that this is something to be mindful of and to be intentional with because of how many people are struggling right now.
So if people like when I have a young, thin-ish
Hmm.
and they're pregnant, but like if people are they look healthy, they act healthy, they seem healthy, and they feel bad. They're like, something's wrong. I did something wrong. I have gestational diabetes, or I'm
Yes.
have to eat really carefully to control my blood sugar. So we can take away that guilt factor of like, you
Yes.
didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors, and there's
Yes.
solutions. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Exactly. Exactly. And that guilt alone, that's going to raise stress and that's going to make it
That's right. It's a
worse.
cycle.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Versus if we take the information we have and we take what steps that we can to kind of support our body. And I do find that really strict diets will also increase stress for moms.
Interesting.
And so I try hard to take a balanced approach and less about no this, yes this, and more of how can we still include everything, but how do we keep it balanced to keep that glucose more balanced when we're
Okay,
eating.
because being perfect is stressful. Like that's hard.
Yes, yes. Something else that people don't understand and that isn't commonly talked about is the role that minerals play in our body's ability to regulate blood sugar and to be more sensitive to insulin. So potassium is really, really, really important for supporting insulin sensitivity. In fact, it has been found to be just as important for blood sugar regulation as insulin. So this
Hmm.
is a really, really important mineral. And again, most of my clients that I work with are significantly low on potassium. They are not getting enough in. So during pregnancy, you want to be consuming around 3,500 to 5,000 milligrams a day. That's a lot of potassium. So this does take being intentional, making sure each meal includes potassium-rich foods. When we think of potassium, we just think of bananas, but there's
That's
actually
what
a
I was
lot.
I was thinking. How many
You're thinking, oh, I
bananas
have
is
to eat a
that?
lot of bananas. No, there's a lot of foods that contain potassium. Some of my favorites include potatoes, actually, russet
Mm,
potatoes with skin on, sweet potatoes, squashes, watermelon, coconut water, avocados.
mm,
Um,
a wide
there's a
variety.
there's a wide variety, and that makes it a little bit easier, but we still have to be intentional that we are getting a variety of these foods in.
Mhm.
This need for potassium doesn't decrease during postpartum. It's equally as high, especially because of stress that can happen in postpartum and adrenal health. And so, for any moms listening, just being mindful that if we're focusing on potassium, it's going to be throughout pregnancy and postpartum that we're really trying to get those foods in.
Okay. So I you just brought up two questions for me. One of
Hmm.
them is I see people eat, and I was probably guilty of this myself, eat really well during pregnancy
Hmm.
because it's for someone else.
Hmm.
And then they're like, okay, baby's born, it's all out the window. And then they can slide into some other habits. But what I hear you saying is it's important to sustain that for all the repair our body makes, the breast milk our body makes, and the stresses of the postpartum period.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay,
yeah,
cool. So carry on the good stuff. Like
yeah.
keep it going. Okay, and next question that you brought up, prenatal vitamins. I think so many people are like, I am taking a high quality prenatal vitamin. I'm good. So where do those, tell us how those come into play? How important are they? What do we need beyond a good prenatal vitamin? And maybe that's a whole different subject for a whole different
It
podcast.
could be a whole nother
We can talk
podcast.
again later,
Yeah.
but what's a quick answer to that?
I think just not using that kind of as it is a safety net, but just falling back on that and just, oh, I have a prenatal, I'm covered. When in reality, different prenatal vitamins have different ratios of vitamins and minerals and nutrients, and they may not have exactly what your body needs, or they may not have enough. So it is a
Like in
good
that
safety
individualized
net.
care.
Yeah, yeah. So again, absolutely take a high quality prenatal vitamin during pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, but what we eat still matters. And I always take a food first approach because
Mhm.
of how significantly that impacts overall health.
Okay. Um, Excellent. You have my brain going. I might have to call you tomorrow with new questions. This is awesome. So, okay, so I don't know, maybe you know this, I don't, but an average prenatal vitamin, how much potassium does it have? Like, are we touching the limits?
No, no,
Okay, okay,
we're
so
not.
not adequate. And
No.
and potassium is just one of many vitamins and
Hmm.
minerals that should be right in.
Yeah,
So there's like deep dive. It's worth doing a deep dive into your nutrition needs, your diet during pregnancy and postpartum.
yeah.
Okay,
And I would
okay.
say, especially if a mother is specifically struggling with gestational diabetes, with preeclampsia, with specific things, that is when to reach out to someone who may have more knowledge. So a nutritionist, a dietitian, someone who is specialized in these things. And there are a lot of different options out there to have specific testing done to look at mineral levels, to look at nutrient status, and to really figure out, okay, what is the whole picture here and how can I optimize supporting my body and not just be really, really restricted during pregnancy.
And those tests, that kind of testing is not going to be done in regular pregnancy care, right? You have to
No, yeah,
seek your
you would
own
have to,
support there. Okay.
yeah.
Good to know. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit to preeclampsia. The
Hmm.
answers might be the same, but preeclampsia, when blood pressures creep up during pregnancy, also seen this happen in healthy women, fit people. I've had Olympic athletes with this, professional triathletes deal with this, but we're seeing that quite a bit. And I think it's a pretty common reason for early inductions. I've
Hmm.
had clients induced at 33 weeks for this, 37,
Yeah, me too.
39. How can we I think preventative is always best, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of times we don't prevent a fire until a fire's happening, unfortunately. So, talk to us. Like, are there specifics like for preeclampsia and keeping the blood pressures in check, or anything you want to tell us about preeclampsia?
Yes. So in order to kind of like, how do we put the fire out once we're there? We have to understand, well, why is the fire there to begin with? And I am a really big fan of the Brewer diet and understanding that the one of the most important aspects of a healthy pregnancy is proper blood volume expansion. And this blood volume expansion has to occur um, kind of at the right levels because if we get behind, then the body is playing catch up. And when the body doesn't have enough blood volume, it's going to respond the same as if we were hemorrhaging. So our capillaries will start to restrict to protect our internal organs and things like that. But a pregnant mom isn't hemorrhaging. She still has blood flowing through it. It's just the body is seeing it as a state of emergency. This causes blood pressure to go up. So, how do we support that? Well, we support proper blood volume expansion. How do we support proper blood volume expansion? How we are eating really, really matters. And so Dr. Brewer has a few principles that I have found through the years as a birth doula, but also with my one-on-one clients that are just pretty good foundations. The first is making sure we're eating sufficient calories. If you think of input and output, in order for the body to create proper blood volume to be able to nourish the baby, to be able to grow the baby, it needs enough input coming in. It needs enough to be able to do that. So eating adequate calories is going to be really, really important, which I think in today's day and age, that is another epidemic that we have is women are significantly under eating for their body's
Mm.
needs. We have grown up with this culture of women shouldn't eat very much. We should eat small portions. We are subconsciously unaware of like how how we're eating, how much food's on our plate. This does play into things. And a lot of women have trained their body to just not eat enough and
So there's
they
some
actually need
cultural
more.
pressures
Yeah,
there.
there are. And a lot of women don't even realize they're doing it
Mhm.
until they start eating more and they start feeling better, is
Mm.
when they often will look back and say, I wasn't eating enough and I didn't know it.
Mm.
So, eating enough. I would say a minimum of 2,600 calories. I'd say 26 to 3,000, which again, you go to your doctor and they're really on this like, how much weight are you gaining?
Right? That's all
But
they look. That's the
that's all they're
only thing they
looking.
address. Yeah.
But if you are eating a nourishing diet, and you're not just eating tons of junk and you're gaining weight, allow your body to gain weight appropriately and don't be super stressed about that. Focus more on nourishment and less about on how much weight you're gaining. So enough calories, unrestricted weight gain, and sufficient protein. This is really, really important
We
for
keep coming back to this protein thing.
it's like I'm saying, it's really important.
I love
But
it.
proper protein consumption is going to support that blood volume expansion, but it's also going to support the health of the liver, which other complications can arise if the liver and the kidneys are struggling. So,
Which is this that happens to, like, with preeclampsia, the danger is to the mom's body, her systems,
uh-huh.
right? Her
Yeah, exactly.
kidney, her liver, those things start struggling as we look at labs and things. So that's why we have to get unpregnant to that's the
Yeah,
solution. But we
yeah,
can
exactly.
okay, so if somebody's having some high numbers creeping up their blood pressure and get diagnosed with preeclampsia, is it too late with diet? Like if
Mm.
they're at that 36-week mark and are saying we might need to induce in a couple weeks, what can they do?
So I never say it's too late to try
Good.
something and just like give up. Like, absolutely, let's look at it. So, um, one, make sure we're consuming enough calories and protein. In that case, I have found the Brewer's diet does have specific protocols that you can look into, different research studies and stuff about what to do in these cases, and it's consuming a lot of food. Um, Another aspect of this is adequate salt intake.
Hmm.
This is another thing that's villainized
I think
and
people
blamed.
cringe when you hear that. Yeah.
Yes, that's what is to blame for the swelling. But in
Hmm.
reality, it's that the body thinking that there is an emergency and constricting, and blood pressure goes up, swelling increases. But if we have enough sodium that can properly hydrate the cells, can help with that blood volume, then we can reduce some of that pressure and that emergency that the body is seeing. Now, sometimes we can improve these symptoms and sometimes we can't. And so with preeclampsia, it's really important to recognize that preventative is best. Um, but there are things that we can do. And this is something that I wanted to mention that's not commonly talked about. And it does ruffle a little feathers sometimes in the birth world, but I think it's important to be aware of is that there's a lot of popularity among pregnancy teas, consuming different pregnancy teas. And for a lot of women, they can be great. But for women who have had complications in the past, specifically with preeclampsia, or that's something they're struggling with, we need to understand that a lot of these teas are actually diuretics. And so
Hmm.
they're going to dilute blood volume and they can increase complications. And I have actually had clients come to me who have been consuming pregnancy teas the whole pregnancy, and that stopping those has supported their
Hmm.
preeclampsia symptoms and things like that. And so, again, this is where everyone is bio-individual and we need to be aware. And sometimes when we just have these blanket recommendations of everyone consume that, consume something or have something, being aware that sometimes it's not right for every person's body. And so if there is a mother that is struggling with preeclampsia, and she's drinking a lot of pregnancy tea, I would hold off on that and I would really focus on consuming a lot of minerals and salt and eating protein and see if the body can kind of self-correct.
Okay, excellent. So even something as benign as pregnancy teas could be considered something to change as we're shifting some of these things.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, okay, I have a question about salt. It seems like our American diet is rife with salt.
Hmm.
So, like, tell us about a type. Like, if we need to watch salt, what's a good, I know salt is villainized. What's a good salt to eat? What can we focus on with salt intake?
Yes.
Are we
I'm
eating a bag
actually,
of Lay's chips? Like what are we doing?
sometimes mamas have a craving, but
Yes.
for the most part, I recommend avoiding foods that are high in processed sodium. Really, those foods aren't the best for us anyways. Now again, I'm all about balance. If you have some potato chips at a barbecue or you have some fast food or something, let's not stress about that. But really, let's try to avoid eating a lot of processed foods with high sodium that doesn't contain any other minerals, and instead focus on really good quality sea salts. And there is a variety of different quality salts that I like to use: Celtic sea salt, real salt, Jacobson salt. There's a lot of different options, and I can send you some different links for those. But the point with that is when you can control how much you're putting on, that's going to matter. Your body can communicate needs better to you if you're controlling it. And quality salt that hasn't been refined is going to have more minerals that your body needs for proper hydration, for proper blood volume expansion. And so understanding that quality foods from the earth are always going to have more for what our body needs than something that's processed, including something as simple as salt.
Okay, excellent. Very, very cool. All right, so when we see these two common pregnancy that become high risk, symptoms, gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, well, first of all, we can be preventative in how we eat preconception and during pregnancy. And we also have something in our power to do if those come up
Hmm.
for us, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
That is
absolutely.
so encouraging. I think people feel helpless and guilty when these
Mhm.
things come up for them, and it can shift their birth plan. It can change a lot of things about how they're going into the end of pregnancy and delivery. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on as we wrap up this episode on these topics, or just eating for pregnancy and postpartum health in general?
I think first, and you touched on this, like not feeling guilt, because there is a lot that's at play that we may not even realize that's happening in our environment and the food that we're eating and things like that. And so recognizing that um, not feeling guilt, because that guilt and that shame that some moms may experience isn't going to benefit their body in any way. but also that they can be proactive before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and for future pregnancies.
Mm.
And so if they have had complications in the past, I know that for me at least, there's that fear of, oh, that's going to happen again. But recognizing that our bodies want to thrive and there's a lot that we can do, and digging deeper and doing more research or changing your diet before your next pregnancy can really, really have an incredible impact on your pregnancy and on your birth outcome.
Cool. I think that's and I think people need to understand, and we see this all the time as doulas and birth workers. The system doesn't always have what everything that people need, right?
Nope, it
Emotional
doesn't.
support, education. I mean, it's a great system, but it's lacking. So understanding that even though the system throws its hands up and says this is normal, we see this all the time.
Yeah,
There are some individual steps and empowerment steps we can take to address these things. So
yeah,
in so many
absolutely.
ways. Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Brittany. So you've talked to us a little bit about it before, but tell us again if people want to contact you, and we'll have a link in our show notes. But it sounds like your services, you're virtual. Folks can work with you. Tell us a little bit about that as
Yeah.
people want to be preemptively addressing their nutrition, or if something comes up for them.
Yeah. So I do take all clients virtually. I can order labs and you can go to your local LabCorp, or I can mail out specific tests just depending on which ones we order. And I do work with a variety of women for preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum, and just dealing with different hormone complications or things that often when you can't figure out what's going on, that's kind of one of the favorite aspects of my job is piecing things together and trying to figure out that puzzle piece. But
Cool.
yeah,
And I bet it's got to be so rewarding for you to see people make the changes in their lives that have an impact
yeah.
when they get educated. So that's super cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, I have learned a lot, and I am excited as I have clients that come up. I have a passion for nutrition, not the knowledge that you have, but I love it. And I think it's so powerful in our lives as
Yeah.
in any part of our lifespan is to give that some attention. And I like your balanced approach because perfection is stressful in
It is.
diet, eating, nutrition. But thank you so much for being with us here and spending your time and sharing of some of your expertise and wisdom. We sure appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. So we are concluding this episode of the Ordinary Doula podcast. My name is Angie Rozier. I'm your host. We are sponsored by Birth Learning, and check out our show notes for a link to Brittany's information. She is a great resource and can help people all over the country. We hope the best for you, and please go out today and do something kind for someone else. You'll see a difference in your life. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Ordinary Doula podcast with Angie Rozier, hosted by Birth Learning. Episode credits will be in the show notes. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the many aspects of giving birth.